So I live in Boulder, Colorado. It's kind of, they describe it as Midwest, which I don't, really as a Kiwi, that's not what I would think Boulder is. It's actually, it's a bit of an entrepreneurial hotbed in the US, actually. I've been explaining to a few people that there's a lot of innovation that's happening in Boulder, and it's a very, very vibrant community, which I enjoy a lot. It's also a community that's traditionally been influenced very heavily by hippies, or the rainbow children, as they call them. I swear this guy asks for spare change down on Pearl Street. He's actually got something over the years and still tripping on his headband. Bless. And of course, the hippie culture in Boulder's also attracted a lot of yoga, a lot of yogis, not this kind of yogi, this kind of yogi. And I'm not quite at the point of being able to do this pose. In fact, it actually looks physically impossible, but yeah. So very, very much a hippie community, but a lot of entrepreneurial activity happening there. So it's a very interesting place to be, and I feel like it gives you a lot of freedom to be who you want to be, but equally there's a lot of business going on there as well. There's also, it's very big, it's a lot like New Zealand. There's a big outdoor community there, a lot of cycling. Mountain biking, as this dude is doing, which looks pretty cool. And road biking, and it's a big mecca for road bikers. And this was one of the many things going on as we had the discussion, and I realized that I was going to have to create a new presentation for today. I had 4 of the advanced team of Pure Black Cycling, which is the New Zealand's first attempt at getting into the Tour de France. And my friend Greg Cross called me it was a few months ago now and said, do you mind picking up mail? If we need a mailing address in the US, do you mind if we send mailing to your house? You can be the official US liaison for Pure Black Cycling. And we'll just send you some mail. Mail will come to your house. Sure, not a problem. And he calls me a month later and he said, do you think you could find some accommodation for the guys? They're coming in a few months. It'd be really good if you could, help out and find, not a problem, Greg, not a problem. Just let me know closer to the time. We'll figure it out. He calls me about a week ago. Yeah, so the boys are coming out in a week. Can you maybe bank account and maybe they'll need to stay at your place for a little while till you find somewhere for them to stay. So I said yes, because it's what I do. And so these 4 young guys who are awesome, just lovely guys, come land at my house with their bikes. We clean the garage out so they've got room to do all the mechanical crap that they do. I'm learning a lot about cycling, by the way. If anyone wants to talk to me about road biking after, I'm down, mechanical shifting, electronic shifting, SRAM, Shimano, anyway. Meanwhile, my house is being renovated, and so they're sleeping on the floor of the front room. At this point, I'm realizing why my husband's an artist, which is a whole nother story, but I'm realizing why we kept the 4 mattresses that we kept at his studio. So I'm like, we're pulling the mattresses out and setting them up in the front room, and so anyway, yes, I have these 4, but they'll hate me for that photo, by the way. They don't know that I took that. So I'm coming out to New Zealand as well. So literally this weekend I was reviewing the lease for their accommodation. I'm setting the bank account up, doing all of this stuff. It's all go. I've also told my brother I'd organize his wedding invitations for him. So this was this weekend as well. And I realize as I think about what I want to speak about today, that this is my life. It's a combination of these seemingly unplanned events. And as Dame Judith said, it's about taking opportunities wherever they come and whatever they may be. And they don't necessarily make a lot of sense at the time. But for whatever reason, I just keep saying yes. And as I said, I don't know where they're going. The idea that maybe I can be a small part of New Zealand winning the Tour de France, that's awesome. That I can help my brother with his marriage and start his life, that feels really good to be a part of that. All of these things, I just keep saying yes to. And, I thought, well, thought back to, what did I want to be when I was a kid? Again, Dame Judith and I, we've not actually met. So for some reason, we've got this synergy going, but we've never met. And obviously, I'm not one of these things. But that's actually what I did want to be when I grew up. And I've never actually been a pop star. Maybe. I mean, do you think, no, it's not going to happen. But I think the thing that I loved about Madonna, and I think the thing that's really propelled me through my career, is this concept of changing the rules. And my parents always used to laugh at me because they'd say, you could play any game and you'll just find a way to change the rules so that you win. And I'm like, yeah, what's the problem with that? It seems smart to me. So of course I went and got a career in law. Started off at Russell McVeigh, and that was really the first foray into finding out what the rules were and then figuring out how to, bend them a little. And again, that's been a thread that's gone right through my career as well. And I loved law, and I loved Russell McVeigh, and it was a wonderful grounding in business as well as professionalism. Have never regretted doing that for a minute, and wholeheartedly suggest to anyone wanting to go to law school that it's a great way to start. But I realized just over 4 years into it, as I looked around, that wasn't where I wanted to be. It just didn't feel like the right place for me at the time, but I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, presupposing that I have actually ever grown up, which I'm not sure is true. So I moved to New York, and I purposefully picked this picture because the Twin Towers are in this. I actually landed in New York in January 2002, and New York was in chaos, and it was, I'll never forget, because I basically had decided to go pretty much around September 11, 2001. And a friend called me, and she said, "You're not going now, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I am. There's no one's going to tell, no one, let alone terrorists, are going to tell me what to do with my life." So I did move there, and this was the version of the Twin Towers that I saw, the lights. And, with recent events here in New Zealand as well, you really do realize how you cannot plan your life. These events, to me, show how no matter, what your best intentions are, what your best plans are, that if you attempt to plan, if you attempt to program, if you create pictures of how it needs to be, I think you're leaving stuff on the table. So every time these tragedies happen, for me, it's a great opportunity to really realize what's here in front of me right now. And I also think it's a great opportunity to see the potential. Despite the tragedy, despite the devastation, there's always opportunity. So for me, my life has been not of linear path, but more of happenstance. When I arrived in New York, this is who I thought I would be. Fabulous. Lots. I do love shoes. And this is what I ended up not becoming, but this was the industry that I ended up being in. Talk about, not being able to plan what's going to happen. I ended up in the video game industry. I just thought this picture was quite adorable. We created at Massive the world's first network for advertising in video games. I didn't know a thing about advertising. I'd bought a PS2 once upon a time. That was about as much as I knew, and I had an Atari when I was a kid. That was my knowledge of video games. But, it seemed like a really good idea. It seemed like something that should work. There seemed to be this untapped audience, the Lost Boys, and so it made complete sense to me that, well, why would we not try and do this? And I think of Massive as my on-the-job MBA. America is this place where it's all about getting the MBA. And for me, Massive was that. I feel like I'm on my second MBA right now with Victors and Spoils. The most interesting thing for me about Massive was that we started off, as many startups do, we started off with an idea that we would create tools for actually developing video games and for testing them. And we realized as we got into that market that actually the real opportunity lay in creating this network and creating this media channel. And so, for me, this is, again, another wonderful lesson in just being in the moment and seeing what's really there and what's really going on. If you're too much trying to force your way through a brick wall and you don't stand back and see that there's a way to get around it, it's a mistake and, again, a missed opportunity in my mind. We sold, after a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but pretty quickly to Microsoft. And I moved to Boulder within the first year of working for Microsoft and learned so much, to go from law to go to a startup and then go to a multinational conglomerate like Microsoft. I was really starting to get a lot of experience. And again, I think, echoing what Dame Judith said, really trying to round out what you're doing so that you've got an ability to understand, I think, clients, customers, business partners from every kind of walk of the corporate life, I think really gives you an opportunity to understand where they come from and understand different business opportunities and ways to create those business opportunities. So to remind you, so moved to Boulder, Colorado. It's kind of up here in you'll give me a time check, right? Up here in the Midwest with lots of hippies. And so I was there for there for 2 years, and then started to really look into what was going on in Boulder, and just started meeting a lot of people. I knew that I didn't want to, again, I didn't want a career at Microsoft. That wasn't what I was interested in. I had no idea what I wanted to do, though. And so I just started talking to people. I just started to try and see what was going on. I had this idea that the ad industry was really not meeting clients, that it wasn't really responding properly to what was happening online, digital, and social media. I had this vision, rough vision for what I wanted to do, but I had no idea how to achieve it. And I met John Windsor, who was the co-founder of Victors and Spoils, and we started talking about crowdsourcing. And so from that, it just was one of those aha moments that you get, and we realized that creating an advertising agency that was built on the principles of crowdsourcing was what we needed to do. So I became an ad man. These are my partners, Evan on the far right and John in the middle. And it's been such an education. Again, we're pretty controversial with what we're doing because we're effectively trying to recreate the ad industry. I was recently on a panel. It was one of those moments in my career where I realized that by not thinking things through very well, I actually did something that I probably wouldn't have done had I really thought it through. It was a good thing that I did this, but it was very, very uncomfortable to sit up on a panel at the 4As, which is the traditional advertising, big annual conference, set up on a panel with 3 traditional ad guys and me, and tried to talk about responding to clients and being aware of what was happening. We were supposed to be talking about agency transformation, and they wanted to talk about the fact that it was all the client's fault, and they didn't really understand how to do advertising properly. So it's just like, oh, really? How's that working for you? And, basically, crowdsourcing's become the C word. It's not really looked upon too well. And I think because we're frightening people. It's edgy, it's uncomfortable, we're innovating, and as I say, big can't innovate. So the holding companies struggle with this. So really, for me, as much as being in the moment, again, I think if you really think things through sometimes, you'll scare the crap out of yourself and you'll never do it. So I like to think that I just plunge straight in and to the deep end and figure it out as I go along. So I thought I'd play a little video that hopefully will work. I haven't tested it, that shows you kind of what we're doing.
We are an advertising agency, just like any old advertising agency, really. So if you know what an ad agency is and how they work and what they do, then you pretty much know what we are and what we do, except we are different from other ad agencies in one major way. We are built on what we call crowdsourcing principles. Now, what the hell does that mean, that we're built on crowdsourcing principles? Good question. The answer is, it still means we're an ad agency. So we've got an account director and a strategy director and a creative director or 2 and some C-levels and even a couple dogs hanging out here in an actual office, just like any ad agency. But our creative department is another story. And this is where we use the principles of crowdsourcing. So our writers and our art directors and our strategists and designers and producers, they all exist in a digital database. And we call this our crowd. Now we can tap into this crowd to work on projects as needed. So yeah, in that way, we're a little different. But the key is that to our clients, we feel very familiar. So just like any good ad agency, we first identify the business problem that's got to be solved. Then we collaborate on coming up with a creative brief, and our creatives get to work coming up with ideas to solve that brief. And our creative directors ensure the ideas are on brief and good. Then we present the ideas to our clients, and if they like something, we produce the work and launch it to the world. But instead of only having a limited talent pool of internal creatives for each brief, we literally have thousands of talented people on hand to attack each client's problem as needed. They're digitally connected and managed in our growing digital platform. So these are creatives who are matched to the right brief, and they're paid for the work they do, and the client owns all that work. Or they're paid only for the ideas that a client buys. But again, the bottom line, we are an ad agency. Only we're one that utilizes technology in abundance to make great work for brands without raping the living bejesus out of them in the process in the cost department. So that's basically it. Now, if you're a creative, we'd like you to join us. We think there's a lot for you to gain by doing so, and we'd like to show you what it's about. If you're a client, we'd like you to please try this. We think you'll love the experience and the work.
Oops. Okay. There we go. So we're having a lot of fun. We've worked for some great clients, and it's really exciting when you have a vision, kind of like the guys who are staying with me right now. They have a vision about what they want to do. I have a vision about what I want to do right now, and it's amazing who will come in to embrace you and support you as you do that. And I find just asking, you'll find the people who just want to say yes. For me, it's a lot about taking calculated risk. This is my new kind of term. I'm a big risk taker, but I always am very aware of what my backstop is, how it might play out. I do jump in the deep end, but I usually know, that I can grab a life jacket if it gets too intense, that someone's there to rescue me, worst case, or whatever. It's about, for me, taking calculated risk. I love this cartoon and the listener, highly flattering, huh? Malcolm Gladwell, there was a great article recently about a speech Malcolm Gladwell gave, and he talked about being operationally conservative and socially non-conforming, and he talked about Mark Zuckerberg in this context and Ted Turner in this context, and it really resonated for me. The minute I left Russell McVeigh, my mother was horrified. Oh my gosh, you're not going to be a lawyer, what will I tell everyone? What do I tell people you do? You do what? Video games, media channel, huh? Now it's like crowdsourcing and okay. And I'm not really too interested in being, in conforming to social norms. I never have. I guess that's why I love Madonna. But operational conservatism is something that really appeals to me as well, and I think this is calculated risk. Ultimately, why am I doing this? It's funny, I was chatting with Sam yesterday, and I don't know how to answer this. I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing, why this is what I'm choosing to continue to do. I think it's because I love the learning that I'm getting. I'm obsessed with that. I'm meeting amazing people. I mean, even just at this conference, meeting Sarah and Sam and other people has just been phenomenal. See other young people just doing awesome things on the world stage. It's a lot of fun. I probably am nuts. I'm just compelled to do it. At the end of the day, this is just all I feel. I'm living in the moment, and I'm operating in the moment, and I'm taking opportunities in the moment, and that's what's been working for me. So, there's really no master plan. And I would encourage as many of you just to take calculated risk and be in the moment and say yes, and see what happens. Thank you.